Joining me now is Henry Smith, who's a former Conservative MP. Henry Smith, is that money well spent?
Well, it's just ridiculous, Alex. It's almost like it's some sort of parody that we're living in. The idea that there's a migration museum that needs public funding to support is ridiculous. If people really want to go and see that sort of exhibition, then they should be able to pay for it themselves. And the idea also that asylum seekers should get free public transport in London is just outrageous, particularly at a time when nationally Labour are increasing the bus fare to £3 from £2 and taking away winter fuel allowances from pensioners, from people who've paid their taxes, paid into the system all of their lives. It really is like we're being gaslit yet again.
Although, I'm going to do something I rarely do, Henry, and that's sort of say something in support of Sir Keir Starmer, because it seems to me, he said we're going to smash the gangs, and he's on the move, isn't he? He's been going and having these bilateral meetings across Europe, and he's managed to very quickly sign deals with Balkan states for cooperation in trying to stop migratory flows at source there, or at least when they pass through there, which surely must be applauded. It might not go all the way to resolving the whole crisis, but that definitely sounds like a degree of progress to me.
Well, look, I agree with you. International cooperation, where it can be practically effective, is, of course, something that this country should be engaging with. But time after time, we have seen tens of millions of taxpayers' money given to France, given to other countries like Albania, in some sort of effort to try and stop migration. And yet the numbers keep on going up. Of people crossing the English Channel and coming into the UK illegally. So it doesn't seem to have worked so far. And the other thing that I'm very suspicious about when it comes to Keir Starmer and this Labour government is that, they were happy to give away the Chagos Islands and pay Mauritius for the privilege. Well, I suspect that they'll be happy to give away tens of millions of taxpayers' money to other countries. And then they'll do some agreement that we will take a certain number of refugees from other countries in Europe under some sort of deal. So it may look as though the cross-channel migration is going down, but they'll just be coming here at the invitation of the Labour government anyway. The overall numbers, I think, will rise. They won't go down. And until we have a system in this country, I would argue leaving the ECHR, until we have a system in this country where we can actually deport people, people who've committed crimes, serious crimes in some respects, that can't be deported at the moment, then there will be a pull factor, particularly also if they think they're going to get free transport.
Now, the difficulty, though, with that, the deportation thing, great, I want that, leave the ECHR, send people back, although, of course, Tony Blair sort of canonised everything in the ECHR into British law as well, so it takes more than just leaving the ECHR, I think, to unpick some of the stuff that judges use to keep people here against the British people's will. Is that the latest report I saw is 99% of Channel migrants have thrown their passports into the water. 99%. So where do you deport them back to?
Well, this is the whole nonsense of the system and why we're seeing increasing illegal migration into the country, because there's the pull factor of being put up in a hotel, a warm hotel, unlike many pensioners' homes will be this winter. They get their free travel, seemingly now, if they are going to be in London. And of course, that's the destination that many of them want to go. And yet they flout the system by, as you say, throwing away identity documents. So it makes it much more difficult to know how to be able to deport them. Until we get serious as a country, yes, talk to other countries, look to cooperate to smash criminal gangs, absolutely agree with that. But until we actually have a robust system where we're not being taken for a ride by the international community and by migrants illegally entering this country, as you say, often they are relatively wealthy in terms of the amounts of money they're paying to people smugglers. Until we address that, this problem's only going to get worse. And I doubt that with a Home Secretary like Yvette Cooper, who is photographed with a picture saying refugees welcome, I doubt we're going to see that over the next 4 years of this Labour government, sadly.
Do you know what my cheeky little policy would be that I've just come up with in my head there? I was thinking if I was working for the security services, I would float the idea of saying, how about we send a boat full of migrants back in the opposite direction? People who say, we say, look, you're not going to be welcomed here. You can go and try your luck in the EU, if you will. Stick them on a dinghy and see what happens when they bob into French waters. What do you reckon the French would do if the migratory flow was going in the opposite direction across the Channel?
Well, that's very interesting. I mean, I wouldn't hold your breath. I don't think that this government would try that for a moment. But I do think turning boats around and having them go back into French waters is important. But unfortunately, what we have seen is all too often British vessels going into French waters and collecting migrants and bringing them onshore on the coast of southern England. I think your policy would be a very good one. I've always said you should be Prime Minister, Alex, but I doubt we will get that from this government.
I'm only 40. There's plenty of time yet for me to rule the world. I just know what the French are like. I think that if boats were going back in the other direction, they would be either stopping them crossing or bringing them back to the UK. I don't reckon they would hesitate for a moment. And yet, of course, we're British, so we play by the rules. Now, it seems to me part of a trade-off, what I'm hearing from my sources over in Brussels, that the big trade-off to doing things like sharing police information. We were kicked out of a lot of intelligence sharing organisations post-Brexit. I don't know what that's got to do with being a sovereign nation and all the rest of it. You'd think that you would help each other on international crime still. But it seems to be the trade-off that's going to be offered is, OK, you want us to share information about Schengen borders, you want us to share intelligence that Europol has, then you're going to have to sign up to the Youth Mobility Scheme. That sounds really nice, doesn't it? People under the age of 30 from Europe can come over here and not have to show passports. Well, they won't have to show a passport, but won't have to have a visa. And I think a lot of people sitting there go, oh, that's nice. Young people, that's very inspiring, getting to go live and work in another country. My suspicion with this one, Henry, is that if you were to put that scheme in place, you might get a lot of people from Germany. You might get a lot of people from Spain. My suspicion is they won't have been born in Germany or Spain. Do you reckon I'm onto something?
You are onto something there, Alex, and I don't trust Keir Starmer to have the ability to negotiate. Whenever he's negotiated on the international stage over the last 3 months, he's just given away the UK's advantage in those negotiations. The Chagos Islands, as I mentioned earlier on, is another example of that. Also, if you look at youth unemployment rates in the EU, they are much higher than they are in the UK. So there would immediately be a flow of people into the UK. And as you say, what's to say that those people coming here wouldn't be those who have obtained identity documents in, say, Spain or Germany or other European countries that actually aren't citizens of that country. I think it would be almost impossible to police. I don't think the Home Office are particularly interested in policing our borders anyway. So it would be yet another pull. As you say, it sounds a nice sort of fluffy idea to have sort of, cultural exchanges between European countries and, working in a restaurant or a bar in another European country. It sounds wonderful, but the reality, I think, is just throwing the doors of this country even wider open. And you mentioned earlier on, I was listening to your piece with Alan Mendoza, who is certainly an expert in this area. The security risk to this country is just frightening.
It is. Henry, thank you ever so much. Henry Smith, the former Conservative MP.